I'm betting that everyone here this morning knows what it feels like to not belong. At one time or another, we have all felt the loneliness, the frustration, the helplessness, and the resentment that arise from getting glimpses of the inside from our own outside. The child who sits alone in the lunchroom, jealous of the self-confidence of the cool kids who somewhere along the line have inherited a belief that they belong in every room they walk into. The immigrant who will always be seen and treated as other because of their accent. The unhoused person who has never gotten used to the look they are given when others pass them on the street. The black person who is sure that the giggles of laughter that just erupted when they walked into the room is about them. The HIV positive person who is afraid to disclose their status to their church family. The paraplegic person who is wheeled to a corner and ignored because their disability makes some folks uncomfortable. The trans, non-binary, or same-sex loving person who has been told they aren't welcome at family gatherings. Everyone knows what it feels like to not belong. And these are the people who receive Jesus' blessings in this morning's reading. Not the powerful, not the priests, not the wealthy landowners, but the have-nots of the world. The sick and infirm who live with the stigma that their illness is God's punishment. The out-of-work day laborer who steals bread from the market to feed his family. The sex worker barely surviving in a world where men make the rules. These people whom Jesus addresses are people who know what it feels like to not belong. It's for their ears and for yours and mine and for anyone whose spirit has ever been broken that Jesus spoke blessings of belonging. They aren't prettified constellations or pie-in-the-sky promises that everything will be better in the by-and-by afterlife. The Beatitudes are a public declaration that God's kingdom belongs to those the world has written off. And he began with the people who are poor in spirit. Poor in spirit does not mean poor self-image, insecurity, or lack of confidence. It's not about wallowing in self-pity, misery, or artificial humility. It's not even an emotion or attitude. It's a lived-out reality. Those who are poor in spirit are people who are marginalized and are denied power. To these people who have been denied so much, Jesus says the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Not the rich or powerful, to them. And to people who mourn, not only those who grieve personal losses, but to those who have experienced political loss. The man who continues to quietly mourn the loss of his lover who died decades ago and was denied a Christian burial by the church. To the transgender community who mourns the loss of lives due to suicide and anti-trans violence. to the same-sex loving people who mourn the loss of family relationships and legal rights, to the loved ones of immigrants and protesters who are murdered on the streets and in detention centers, to all the people who have ever experienced loss in their life. Jesus pulls them from the shadows and promises comfort. Not the kind of comfort that fixes everything, because nothing will ever really be the same again and nothing can be fixed. Not the kind of comfort that makes you feel better, because the grief that accompanies loss is a sacred thing, not to be taken away from the person who mourns. Not the kind of comfort that a bottle or drug offers, which wears off and leaves you feeling worse than ever, but the quiet comfort that comes from a friend who knows there's nothing they can do or say to make it better, but will stay with you as long as you need them to, as well as the silent, loving presence of a God who mourns with you. Jesus honors and lifts up the meek who have had everything taken from them, yet choose not to mirror the violence of the politics that has stripped them of their rights, but not their dignity, even when they have every reason to rage. This is not weakness, it's resistance. And Jesus says they will inherit the earth. Because domination ultimately exhausts itself, and it will be up to those who have been labeled as meek to rebuild the broken earth that is their inheritance. Jesus blesses those with deep longing and desire for justice. These are the ones who have been labeled naive for dreaming of a better world. But it's not naivete. It's a holy desire that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's a longing for a world where authenticity is not punished and love is not policed. Jesus lifts up mercy, purity of heart, and peacemaking, not as fluffy virtues to which we should aspire, but as collective practices that disrupt cycles of harm. Mercy resists the logic of mass incarceration. Purity of heart rejects the existence of double lives that have been reinforced by shame and fear. Peacemaking is the dangerous work of dismantling systems that profit from division. The merciful, the pure in heart, and the peacemakers may be abandoned by fair weather friends, but they're embraced and held close as children of a merciful God. They belong. And for those who feel abandoned by God because of the persecution they endure for the sake of justice, Jesus assures them that the persecution he speaks of is not a sign of God's absence, but is often the cost of living honestly in a world invested in power and control. Jesus begins his words with the promise of God's kingdom of heaven, and he concludes them with the same. It's yours, he says, accessible in the here and now, breaking in among those who dare to live, grieve, resist, and hope together. In Jesus' vision, blessing is not a reward for obedience, but a declaration of belonging. Women, transgender and non-binary people, same-sex loving people, immigrants, people of color, indigenous peoples, unhoused people, unemployed people, HIV positive people, and disabled people. Regardless of how a patriarchal, power-based society has tried to make them feel as if their place is on the outside of society as well as the reign of God, they are named, they are seen, they are blessed, and they belong. And so do you. Amen.